Good morning, directors. And this is the beginning of the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board for March 7th, 2024. Co-chair Will Cole-Hamilton is not present at today's meeting, and co-chair Mark Baker is on the meeting online, but is wondering if there would be somebody in the room here in the civic room who would be willing to act as the presiding member for this meeting only. The procedure bylaw would require that the board assign or appoint somebody to be that presiding member for this meeting. So I would open the floor to any suggestions or offers of presiding member for this one meeting. Director Chapman.
I would nominate Doug Hillen, Director Hillen, for chair.
Doug Hillen, thank you. Is there any objection to that? And Director Hillen, would you act as presiding member for this meeting?
I'm willing to do that. I'm not a regular member of the board. I'm here as an alternate for Director Cole-Hamilton, so I would just want to be assured that that's acceptable to board members.
I don't see any further speakers on that or any objection to that. So without further ado, then I think decision to have Director Hillen preside over this meeting would be in order. So I'll turn the microphone over to Director Hillen then.
Well, if I'd known this was going to happen, I would have worn my jacket. Thanks very much. I'll do my best to help facilitate. And I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're meeting today on the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, and that the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service area includes the Coast Salish, Kwawaka'wakw, and Nuu-chah-nulth territories. And I'd like to welcome everyone here, those in the regional district chambers in Courtenay, and those who are joining us online from all over the North Island. So the first item on the agenda is a recommendation that the agenda be approved as presented. A motion for that, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by Chapman. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? That is carried. And we have the adoption of minutes from the Waste Management Board dated February 8th for adoption, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by Mawhinney. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? That's carried. And we have under reports, the Village of Tassus operational agreement, a report dated February 29th regarding a 5-year agreement with the Village of Tassus for the operation of the Waste Management Center. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by McCollum, seconded by Davis, and over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. I was going to say Mr. Chair, but thank you for stepping in to preside over the meeting. I'd like to introduce Jesse Lee, who will be introducing this staff report on the Village of Tassus operational agreement. So Jesse, over to you.
Through the CAO, let's just give a quick overview of the report. So the purpose of the report is to receive board approval to enter into a 5-year agreement with the Village of Tassus to provide landfill and recycling services. The value of the agreement over the term is about $690,000 with an optional 2-year renewal. The service has the option to operate the landfill to about 2028 based on capacity, which at that point the landfill will close and we move to a transfer station. And there is a remainder within the agreement for that provision to change it to work with the village on what that term would look like as far as the financial parts of it. The solid waste management plan has a landfill closing in approximately 2025. That was with the, but we were able to get a little bit more capacity over the last little while with that. With that, the village and the service have worked together since the early 1990s to provide that service to the village and to the residents, and we look to continue to provide that working relationship together. If there's any questions, thank you.
Questions or comments from directors? There do not appear to be any, so thanks very much.
Thank you.
Oh, we've,
Oh,
am I missing a light here? Oh, it's Director Mawhinney. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I was curious about the agreement. It seems you are dealing with yard waste. Is that including household compost? And if so, could there be some details shared, please?
there is, the yard is separate from the compost. There is a compost pile that Stephanie's working with in a small jerrycan system with the village. But that's not at the landfill. No, it's a small scale. Some residents are participating in that one. Yeah. But sorry, I should say that but the village will look after that continued. Yeah.
Something further, Director Mawhinney? For those on the line, Director Mawhinney is grateful for the answer. All right, any further discussion? I believe we're on the receipt. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried. And we have the recommendation that the regional district enter into the 5-year agreement. Moved by Grant, seconded by Davis. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. And we will move on to item number 2, the solid waste step 3 consultation next step summary, a report from March 1st for receipt. A motion, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by Grieve, and over to staff.
Thanks very much. Sarah Willie, our manager of solid waste planning and policy development, will be introducing the staff report, and I believe has a PowerPoint presentation to go along with that. So Sarah, over to you.
Thank you through the CAO to the chair. Well, we're just pulling, oh, look at you right on top of that. Thanks so much. So I'm here today to present on the step 3 of the solid waste management plan renewal process. So we've been through 2 stages so far. We initiated the process in fall of 2022, set the groundwork, established the existing system, where we were at, where we saw some challenges and some gaps. We set the plan direction in 2023 with our goals and guiding principles and went out to the community with those and hit every community. And we've reported back to the board on that. And we're now in the 3rd step of the process, which is to evaluate strategies. And then the 4th step, of course, is to adopt a plan and present to the ministry. The objectives of this step 3 consultation are really to make sure that people understand the challenges that we have within the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service and how we can work to present some strategies to them and achieve our goals and guiding principles and our provincial goal of 75% diversion. We will be sharing information with other jurisdictions, from other jurisdictions, best practices, bringing into context options for folks. We'll be incorporating feedback from impacted stakeholders as we move forward. So we'll be meeting with them early in the process. And then, of course, we'll be seeking feedback on these potential strategies, including costs, from the RSWAC, which is the Regional Solid Waste Advisory Council. That's our group of public and technical members, as well as 2 members from the board here, as well as we'll be seeking feedback from the board themselves and ultimately from the public in the later stages of this step. So we've already begun the gathering strategies phase of this process. Through step 1 and step 2, our consultation with the public, they were more interested in telling us what they felt needed to be done than telling us what they thought about the goals and guiding principles. So we've definitely incorporated those comments and feedback from our in-person engagement that occurred last year, as well as through our online survey that was part of step 1. We did a comprehensive idea generation session with the Regional Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and that was held in December here and resulted in some great feedback from them. We'll be going out to stakeholders through the next 5 months, and then there'll be a board roundtable discussion as well in September. Compiling all those into a long list of strategies will happen later this year, and then we'll be able to move forward into our broad engagement. So just highlighting for you the local government stakeholders. We've certainly been keeping this board up to date, but we do feel it's important to, not be coming with our draft plan to the councils for the first time without any previous context. So our plan is to present to municipal councils just on an update on the status of the solid waste management plan in May and June. Areas of overlap with them are around multifamily jurisdictions, business licensing, as well as building and demolition permits. And expansion, of course, as communities grow. We're also going to be presenting to the electoral area services committees, both in the SRD and the CBRD, with the identified gaps that we have in diversion opportunities for rural residents on Vancouver Island. And then we'll be presenting to adjacent regional district staff in order to make sure that, what we're proposing and what we're looking at are going to be working in concert with the steps that they've taken. They're in various phases. Alberni Clay-Quat's just undertaking their solid waste management plan renewal as well right now. Mount Waddington's finished in the last few years. I think Regional District of Nanaimo is about 4 or 5 years old now, but they're well underway in terms of moving forward and implementation. For sectoral engagement, what we've identified is an emphasis on the large businesses, the major employers, significant generators of non-residential waste. So with that, we've got a technical memo that'll be coming forward to the board and be conducting one-on-one conversations with them. We'll be making offers to present to community groups, whether that's business associations, chambers of commerce, Rotary, environmental organizations, where they we will come in and make sure that they're informed. We're set meetings with the construction industry as well as our private sector partners and nonprofits. So that would be in the thrift, the reuse spaces, our private landfill operators, hauling, as well as depot operators. So there's certainly a large part of the system that we provide, but it works only because we have these private partners in place. And then we've got some early engagement happening in community where there's significant changes anticipated. So the closure of the landfills on the West Coast that Jesse alluded to earlier in his presentation, so in Tassis and Zabalis and potentially Gold River. We've got a change from status quo for rural residents on Vancouver Island. So again, recognizing that gap in diversion, how we move forward there. Cortez Island, there's been some complexities that have come through in the last couple of years in terms of the service delivery there, with part of the service delivered through the SRD on their curbside. Some challenges from Recycle BC in terms of funding that curbside service of recycling, and it integrates with the depot service. So some conversations to be had. And on Quadra Island, we're introducing a new depot. So we want to meet with the community there, and they've also undergone some changes recently with the subscription service provision. And then for our regional landfill host community, we'd like to offer enhanced engagement to ensure that members of the community there are aware of our investment and commitment to continuing to have our landfill here in Cumberland. So how we'll be bringing all this information back to you guys, to the board, is through technical memos. So we've got one coming forward today that Vivian will be presenting subsequent to this on reuse opportunities at our facilities. So we'll compile those technical memos and present multiple strategies to you. Those won't come with a recommendation. The idea being that there will be more options or strategies than we can probably afford in the end. So we don't want you committing early to the first ideas that we present. We'd like to bring forward all of the long list of ideas so that you can make a decision based on the full picture. But we know it will be a lot of information to digest. So allowing us to bring it to you piecemeal, we think will be better for the process overall. We'll have the ability to amend those memos through 2024 with your input as well as those from stakeholders as we meet with them. And then, as I mentioned, we'll compile those into a long list of options that will go through the RSWAC first before coming to the board. And then our broader engagement, which will happen later in the year, next year in 2025, will be the short list of strategies that will be presented to the public for consultation. So just timing and next steps for this phase, we've got a launch in April 2024, soft launch with our website and meeting with stakeholders. And an early engagement through 2024. We're going to be narrowing down those options subsequent to the board input, and then our broad engagement in 2025. And that broad engagement will include in-person engagements across the entire service area, not just those previously mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for that presentation, and we'll see if we have questions or comments from directors. And we have Director Turian.
Hi, yes, my question, I guess, relates back to something we were told at our last meeting, that there would be financial implications to some of this, and we would have information about those implications in time for our next round of budget meetings in 2024. Is that work still going to be on time? And right, most of this looks like it's not wrapping up till late 2025. I'm just wondering how that's all going to fit into the picture.
Yeah, just through the CEO. Just so to make sure I understand your question, the budget implications related to the implementation or the budget implications related to the engagement itself?
Related to the implications, again, we're facing that sort of $10 million shortfall for cell 3 in 2031, and we've kind of kicked the can down the road till next year's budget for addressing it. And we were told that there would be more financial information before then. And I'm wondering if that's still on track.
Thank you. I think I understand now. Yeah, so as part of this compilation of strategies, there'll be financial implications associated with each of them. Some of them may be high-level estimates based on experience in other jurisdictions, but they will, through that selection of that short list of options, that will give us an idea of financial consequences of moving forward with this plan. So those will be incorporated into the budget process. So we're anticipating that for fall to be able to bring that to the board in order to make recommendations to engage in 2025 on the short list.
Okay.
So yes, is the short answer.
I think maybe just to add to that, thanks, Sarah. So for the budget discussions for the 2025 to 29 budget process, we've just completed the 24 to 28 budget process. Yes. For the 25 to 29 budget process, there will be more information, better information, more context for you in that 25 to 29 process, based in large part on the solid waste plan review process. The review process won't be done by the 25 to 29 financial planning process, but you'll have more information. You'll be in a better spot to be making decisions for next year's budget process.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks for that. And we have a question in the chat online from, I believe, from Director Sinnott. Could you elaborate on our local First Nation government engagement? And in addition, we have a private waste disposal operator. Will they be part of this?
Yes, thank you for the question. We will be bringing back to the board an update on our First Nation engagement to date. We've had good initial conversations with the village of Zabalas these last few months. And in those conversations are the 3 First Nations as well that are a part of that waste shed. So we've got a Hadasat, Uklaji community with Nechatla Nation, as well as Cayuga First Nation. So that's been a great conversation in terms of working with them on the future, and it's really great to see the collaboration there. We are considering a community-to-community meeting. So that's just in its initial stages, but that was a request from them to potentially hold a conversation with the community in the summer to discuss the changes that are happening there. Mochilat First Nation, we had representatives come to our meeting in December, our SWAC meeting in December. That was our first time that First Nations participated. Everyone has been invited, and that was great timing, as that was our idea generation meeting. So it was great to have both their CAO and their housing manager participate there. With Comox First Nation, there's a lot on the table right now with the CVRD and significant projects. we've certainly been available to them to meet, and we're welcome to do that whenever they have the capacity. And then with each of the other nations, you know, we're keeping them up to date, and then working with them on sort of operational things as they come up. But in terms of engagement on the plan themselves, it has been sort of not something that they've wished for us to come and present on so far, but we've made that option available to them.
Thanks for that. And we have a question from Director McWhinney.
Oh, I don't think.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a second question.
on the.
Oh,
Let me address.
sorry, that's the second question about the private waste disposal operator.
Thank you, Director Mulvaney, for reminding me. The private waste disposal operator, I'm assuming we're speaking of the private landfills in Campbell River. Please clarify if I'm incorrect there. Yes, so the private landfill operators, we will be sending stakeholder letters to them and offering to have a conversation about how that fits into our solid waste management plan as part of their ability to operate requires them to be listed within our solid waste management plan. So we'll be bringing them into the conversation.
Thanks for that. And my apologies for the slight glitch. And thanks, Director McWhinney, for picking that up. It's over to you now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the report on this. It was pretty interesting. I had one sort of comment and a question, and the comment is in regard to the recommendation around public engagement on the islands during the summer. And it is true that the population of the islands is at its peak during the summer. However, it's largely due to high visitor numbers with some additional summer residents blended in. And in my experience, summer is an extremely busy time for most islanders who are working and serving the increased population, and the engagement that you get during the summer may not be with core year-round islanders. So I would just personally recommend that July and August are not ideal months to be engaging if you're looking to engage with locals.
Thank you for that feedback.
And the other thing that I was curious about was the report outlines a lot around the timing of engagement and advertising strategies, but there wasn't much mention of the topics of the engagement. And I'm wondering if the planned engagement will include consultation on composting and recirculation or free stores, as well as the garbage and waste, which are mentioned. And the reason I'm asking is because I, like many other rural folks, do compost in my own backyard. But since I've come into this role, I've really met more islanders that for various reasons, whether they have land use constraints or rodent concerns or whatever, are sending all their food waste to the landfill. And I know that I just like to ensure that composting and free stores is part of that conversation at least in the rural communities. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll be digging into the restores in the following presentation to the board here today. And so we'll be bringing that topic to the community in terms of options and strategies that are presented there and getting their feedback on that. So that will be part of it. And then for organics, we have a subsequent memo that will be coming to the board as well, looking at diversion opportunities, not just for organics, but for food recovery and sort of going up the hierarchy there. So that will be part of the conversation as well we'll have with community.
Okay, so the composting, that or food recovery, those conversations will be included in the engagement that you're planning for the summer.
Yeah, I think recognizing that, you know, we've tackled the largest jurisdictions here for organics. You know, in our next 10-year horizon, we want to have some form of organics diversion opportunities for our other community members. What form that takes and what the best opportunity is, whether it's local, small scale, consolidated, whether we haul it, that's part of that conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Further questions or comments from directors? And there don't appear to be any. So thanks very much for the reports and the presentation, Sarah. We'll vote on receipt. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? That's carried. So we have a recommendation that the solid waste management plan renewal step 3 consultation next step summary be approved. Moved by Grant, seconded by McWhinney. Is there any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much. And we do have a question from Director Chapman.
Have a subsequent after the vote.
After the vote, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that staff reach out to the SRD staff with a view in mind to help them with the outreach to First Nations to get them a little more involved in this. They are going to be affected by it. And I think if we get ahead of it, deal with them right up front with everyone else, I think we would be averting some potential difficulties in the future. So I would like waste management staff to work with SRD to reach out to the First Nations to get them more involved in this consultation process.
Okay, hang on a second here, and we'll just clarify that your motion is that waste management staff reach out to Comox or to Strathcona Regional District staff for the further engagement of First Nations communities in the solid waste plan step 3 consultation. And we do have a seconder, and I would from Director Davis. I think the motion's in order, and we'll ask Sarah if she can speak to that, please.
Yes, thank you through the CEO to the chair. So we do work with Strathcona Regional District's First Nation liaison. The Comox Strathcona Waste Management actually has her capabilities 1 day a week to support us in making sure that we are engaged beyond Comox First Nation, which is the CVRD's primary focus down here. So with Asley and her contacts with the many projects that she's working on with the SRD, whether it's emergency response or housing, we're leveraging that relationship building that she's doing in order to engage the nations beyond Comox First Nation that are all a part of our CSWM service. So 10 nations in total that have a community here that are part of or rely on our facilities for use. Just put that into context, but thank you for the motion.
Okay, thanks very much. So the motion will essentially reinforce what you're doing and perhaps give it some added emphasis. And we'll just see if we can get it up on the screen for the benefit of primarily of those online and those who would prefer to see it visually. Is there any further comment on the proposed motion? We'll get it. We'll get a simplified version that Comox Strathcona Waste Management staff reach out to Strathcona Regional District staff to assist with outreach with First Nations. Does that capture the intent of the motion, Director Chapman? Director McCollum? Oh, sorry, Director Grant first.
I was just wondering if Doug could maybe elaborate a little bit, because it sounds like we are collaborating to some degree, and does it need more oomph to it, or is there a problem there? Or I'm not really sure where this is coming from.
We'll go back to Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I want a little more oomph into it. We have a very large contingent of First Nations in the Strathcona Regional District. I appreciate reaching out to them and talking with them. But I want more, I'm hoping more for not just we've consulted with them, but I want them more engaged in the process. So what I'm saying here is I don't want us telling them what we're doing. I want them involved in developing what we're doing.
Thanks. Director McCollum?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess my question is whether or not we need a motion like this if it's reflecting what's being done. I'm just want clarity as to whether or not this directive to have our staff go to SRD staff in order to work with our with our stakeholders is a necessary step. I guess I just want to hear whether or not this is a useful way to provide direction.
Thanks. We'll ask Mr. Warren to comment.
Yeah, I think it's fine if the board wants to pass this kind of resolution. Like Sarah said, we are quite connected with the SRD staff person who is able to assist us most ably. The added emphasis from a resolution like this certainly gives a little bit more strength and conviction to that work that is already happening.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll go to Director Sinnott online.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My concern was when the answer from our staff was that they reach out and some First Nations don't have a level of engagement back. That sometimes I find when we're dealing with our First Nations, they're very busy like we are, and they don't realize the magnitude of the issue. So sometimes we have to do more to get the engagement level up. We're finding that even within our city. And so, you know, they're not stakeholders, they're governments. And we have to treat them like we're going to be treating the municipalities and do meaningful consultation under UNDRIP. So I think it behooves us to actually make the extra effort, and that's why I would support the motion. And I think staff understand that.
Thanks for that. And we'll go to Director Rice.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that for Area D, I don't think the First Nations village has been consulted at all. And yet, you know, 5 years from now, we're looking at about 500 people. So again, I do support this motion. I think it's important that we engage everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks. Just regarding Director McCollum's comments with regards to First Nations being stakeholders, I don't think that's really an appropriate use of First Nations. I do believe that they're considered governments and they're much more higher than a stakeholder. And I agree with Susan's comments that she had made mention of, as well as First Nations should be being recognized as a stakeholder, especially from a board member here in the Comox Valley. Thanks.
Thank you. And Director McCollum.
Oh, I just wanted to apologize for the use of the word stakeholder. It wasn't meant to diminish the government to government relationship that we have. It was a poor choice of word. So apologies for that.
Thanks for those comments, Director McCollum, and the discussion is a good clarification for all of us. It looks like there are no further comments, so we'll vote on the motion. Is there anyone opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thanks very much. And bringing back up our agenda, we shall move on to item number 3, the exploration of reuse initiatives at waste management facilities, a report dated February 29th regarding reuse initiatives and their potential growth. Motion for receipt, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by Davis. And we'll turn that over to staff.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Vivian Shaw, our Senior Manager of CSWM Services, will be introducing the staff report, and it's a follow-up from previous board direction. So, Vivian, over to you.
Thank you, James. Through the CAO to the presiding chair and the CSWM board. This report here is following the direction from the September 14th board resolution. Since then, as Sarah mentioned, the Regional Solid Waste Advisory Committee, RSLAC, they met back in end of the year in December last year to evaluate some of the options in reaching the goals that are set out as part of step 2 of this solid waste management renewal process. Specifically, this report here speaks to the goal number 2, which emphasizes the importance of elevating the 7 R's, reuse, specifically around reuse, but also elevating the rethinking, refusing, redesigning, reducing, repair, and recycle, with the overarching goal of reducing the regional disposal rate from the current 518 kilograms per capita to meet the provincial target of 350 kilograms per capita. So the appended memo is, again, really just details out the options that we've evaluated. This report here builds on the report that was previously presented to the board back in 2017, which previously recommended against the option of implementing free stores. Again, it's really recognizing those concerns around the negative impacts to existing businesses in the urban areas, recognizing the operational complexities, financial demands, and those the legalities. As noted by the directors around the table at that September meeting, the urban areas within the CSWM service area, specifically here in the Comox Valley and up in Campbell River, we are lacking free stores and share sheds, which are more commonly found in the rural areas. Introducing the free stores in these urban centers that do require careful consideration of the existing services and those potential impacts. They already have a lot of access to alternative services like thrift stores, as well as online platforms. So again, just really again recognizing the potential to divert those resources from existing businesses and the operational challenges that due to staffing. So currently to date, in the absence of free stores in the urban areas, the CSWM have engaged in various initiatives like clothing swap events, repair cafes to promote waste diversion. But we, again, do recognize that they are very successful in the rural areas, and we want to acknowledge that. There are a number of factors, as outlined in the report, which we've been able to attribute the success in those rural communities, most notably that environmental awareness, the value of reduction through waste, through reuse of items. And these stores really do align with that community center ethos that's really prevalent in smaller communities, especially fostering those social bonds and collective responsibility, along with resourcefulness, again, making the free stores that much more prevalent in the rural communities. So in the preparation of this technical memo, staff had reached out to a number of local governments in various, around the province to get a better sense of who's doing what. The commonality between all the people that we talked to is the recognition of the importance of promoting reuse and the repurposing of materials in the effort to reduce the waste that's actually being landfilled. They had various approaches, such as free stores, share sheds, donation programs, community events, all again facilitating that notion of reusing items. Staff oversight is one of the biggest commonality that was noted between all the examples that's provided within the report. Across the jurisdiction, it's evident that proper staffing is really essential to ensure the effective operation of and management of these reuse initiatives. And staffing is required to maintain order, prevent misuse, illegal dumping, and ensuring the quality and also the resaleability of the donated items. Staff again plays a really crucial role in sorting, organizing, and facilitating the redistribution of those items. Again, contributing to that success of these rural communities, or sorry, these rural, the success of these reuse initiatives, which is echoed by our own operations, which there are 5 within our service area. So for the board's consideration, I won't go into every single one of them, but there are 5 strategies that we are identified to address goal number 2 of the solid waste management plan. These strategies range from advocating for donations to reuse establishments, which is strategy 1A, and it goes to establishing almost a dedicated reuse hub, which is identified in strategy 1D. And again, supporting share sheds in the rural communities, which is detailed out in strategy 1E. So each of these strategies have different impacts on diversion potentials, operational and staffing requirements, capital costs, and regulatory considerations. So this document here really does highlight the importance of that incremental and potentially pilot approach, partnership with existing nonprofits, and avoiding the duplication of efforts. The strategy, the overall arching goal is to promote that reuse and fostering that community engagement while considering those unique needs of each of the different communities. One of the things that we really wanted to highlight in this report is that diversion potential and those operational impact, the value for money. Value isn't necessarily quantified only in the monetary sense. We wanted to ensure that we are considering all aspects of value, so including the greenhouse gas impacts, which will be in a forthcoming report. The significance of that secondhand economy is really important to consider. It's that interaction between that and the new goods market and the resulting contribution to economic activities, as well as the consumer well-being, the economic benefit to and the social benefit to our residents. So this report that's before you has been presented to the RSPAC committee, and prior to this meeting, and their feedback has been incorporated. And as Sarah has mentioned, this technical report is part of a series of technical memos that will be presented to the board leading up to the September roundtable for discussion. And again, the purpose is to really thoroughly examine each of these options that are being presented, so allowing the board to be able to assess them more comprehensively rather than in fragments. It's really important to be able to look at all the different options, to be able to look at so that the board can make a more informed decision holistically as to how we're going to be able to achieve the diversion goals that's been laid out in front of us. And that concludes my portion. Sorry, I know that was long.
Thanks very much. I couldn't help noticing that Director Sinnott's rather large dog had joined the meeting momentarily. I wasn't sure whether it was trying to make a point or just saying hello. But thanks for that mini diversion. And we have Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I recognize the share sheds work quite well in the rural areas. And I appreciate the sensitivity to the effect of the businesses in the urban areas. Is it possible, or should we solicit support and participation from businesses in the way of a request for proposal to help with diversion? I know that's more work on staff. Sorry, Mr. Warren. I saw you cringe there, but what I'm getting at is allowing businesses to participate in their own way. And if they choose not to and they're affected, then at least they had an opportunity to participate and put in a response to an RFP. Is that practical?
And Vivian, please weigh in as well. But from my read of the report, I think that is one of the methods that we might want to consider pursuing an expression of interest from some of those businesses to participate in a diversion initiative or a free shed sort of concept. So that is exactly, I think, what one of those concepts might be. And then we would have a sense of whether there's a participation from that private sector to show some partnership across the organization. It's something that would be looked at and considered and fleshed out in more detail through the solid waste management plan review. But Vivian, do you want to? I think I'm on point there with that.
Yeah, that is exactly my comment back. Strategies 1A and 1B do speak to the expression of interest to local nonprofits. There are a number of them that are operating within the service that's appended as Appendix B, I believe, to this report. It has a listing of most of the ones that we're aware of that's operating in Campbell River and here in the Valley. And strategies 1A and 1B does speak to the partnership and again, understanding the value of those partnerships and the role that they play in our community. Working with them to identify goods that are perceived to have a perceived value that they can resell or redistribute back into the community. And it's again really working with those partners within our community to redistribute those goods.
Thanks very much for that. Further questions or comments, Director Mawhinney? Oh, sorry, I think Director Davis is first.
Oh, thanks, Chair. And thanks, Vivian, for that report. In the village of Tassus, we've had a free store since at least the 90s, maybe even longer. I don't know. It's been very successful. The one problem we have is that it's open at all times, and we do get some dumping there of materials that aren't even repairable. So that is an issue. Certainly in larger communities, it has to be staffed. I'd also point out, City of Victoria has one that's operational at the Heartland landfill, which is wonderful. I picked up a 5-gallon pail of paint there, for instance. So I guess you could argue that it has impacts on local businesses, but really, you know, we don't want to see this kind of waste happening. So people can repurpose these things. It's a good thing to do. So, you know, just some general comments there. But in Tassus, we are very happy with it, and it helps people that live in poverty as well. So thanks.
Thanks very much. We'll know where to go for paint now. Director Mawhinney and Director Thayson, you'll be next.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions and a comment, so maybe I'll go with my questions first. And regarding the 1E strategy, it mentions that there's a requirement for a formal agreement with CSWM, which details the legal relationship. Are there any share sheds currently operational and listed here, which this stipulation would negatively impact? And I'm also wondering about insurance. It's the #1 reason for grant and aid requests in Area C. And I'm curious if there could potentially be a mechanism for providing volunteer insurance through something creative within CSWM. And then I'll ask is it okay to ask those questions first? And
Yeah, just leave your mic on, please.
Thank you for the question. In that list of the existing free store share sheds within the report, there's currently 6, or sorry, there's 6 identified, one of which has since closed since COVID. But the 5 remaining, 4 of which are on either leased lands and with direct formal agreements. The only one that doesn't have the formal agreement is the one that we identified at the last board meeting, which is the Cortez free store. And we are working with the community to arrive at hopefully an arrangement so that we can better support what, again, we understand that the value that these free stores bring into these communities, especially the smaller communities within our service area. So we definitely had embedded this strategy here to help recognizing that and supporting those rural initiatives. Sorry, to your second comment around exploration of more innovative arrangements. It isn't something that we have gone too far down that path, but it is something that we're considering so that in the evaluation of this strategy here.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. And I guess my comment, I know that these memos are coming out and we're going to be receiving several of them over the next few months in sort of like in bigger picture, what we want to include in the solid waste management plan and moving forward. We looked at the timeline for the solid waste management plan earlier, and it looks like we'll be finishing it in 2025 or 2026 once it's returned from the province. And to me, I'm not super keen on deferring this piece of the report and supporting rural free store initiatives until 2026. I'm going to say that there is a volunteer group on Quadra who has been advocating with the CSWM for support on potentially co-locating with the new recycle depot. They've been working on it for a few years now. There are, as you can see on that list, free stores or share sheds listed in many rural areas within the CSWM catchment. However, there isn't one on Quadra, and these volunteers want to change that. And so I just don't think that waiting for 2.5 more years to even begin the process seems like a good suggestion. Like the report says, we are a diverse region with diverse needs. So I would like to, I looked at the amount of money that you're recommending in there was just $1,500 for each rural free store share shed and as a minimum and potentially going up based on population. And I think that would probably likely be under $20,000 per year and quite possibly less than that. So I would like to see us taking action on that piece. I know that we're looking at like what makes the most sense for diversion, but I think for my community, moving forward on this is the right thing to do.
Thanks very much. Any response to that, Vivian?
If that's the direction from the board, it is definitely something that we can consider within the budget. That piece is more or less for the existing facilities, but there is the staffing component that we will need to consider as well. So we will need to look at the entire full operational arrangements and the operational capacity and the layout of the facility, which is currently underway. We can certainly review that within the context, but we'll take direction from the board as to how to proceed.
Thanks very much. We do have alternate director Jason with a question or comment. Pardon me if I've mispronounced your name, but go ahead, you have the floor.
Not a problem. Thanks so much. Really pleased to see this conversation happening. Some experience with the free store on Cortez tells me that, you know, it does do a good job of diversion, but one of the issues that we have here is overabundance of supply and not enough consumers of free items. So really happy to see and want to emphasize some of the focus on the rethink and refuse part of the 7 Rs. And looking forward to seeing how we can, you know, that's a really hard thing for us to work on, but I'm really glad that we're tackling it anyways. And I also wanted to just highlight some thoughts about the negative impact on businesses as being also the flip side of a potential benefit to the public in terms of resilience, especially during difficult economic times. I don't suppose that we have too much information about the rise of the use of valuable items that have been previously used, thrift stores and free stores, but my suspicion would be that goes up when inflation goes up. So it is kind of a resilience piece to be able to provide that to the public. And forgive me if any or all of that is covered in your report. I didn't manage to get through all of it. I'm just an alternate. And then maybe this is a question, whether we're looking at options for diversion that would send things beyond the communities within which they are being gathered. So to other areas of need, maybe areas of low abundance. Cortez is a relatively wealthy community in some ways, so we get a lot of high value goods. There might be other communities that could benefit from some of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And at the risk of appearing self-serving, I'll say that you're never just an alternate, a vital part of the conversation.
Thank you.
Director Therrien, please.
Hi, thank you for the report. I just had a quick question about 1D. It shows a bit of the financial at $1.5 million in sales for recycled products, 50 people employed, and a $3.3 million facility. Is that facility profitable? Are they paying their mortgage? Or is it actually government funded? Even with those that volume of sales.
We weren't able to speak to them directly. So this was through some master's theses and information available online that I learned about their situation. So from what I understand, they have been able to turn a profit in the last couple of years. But how the COVID would have impacted that is unclear. Yeah, that's my understanding to date, but it's not a perfect solution for sure. Even through the discussion within the master's theses, looking at, just the significant volume of furniture that was coming through there. Almost speaking exactly to the director's comments earlier about Cortez, the quantity of material of furniture coming through, it far exceeded the demand. And so, a good portion of materials even coming through that facility had to be directed to waste. So that on a weekly cycle, on if things that were left over at the end of the week that the vendors couldn't use would have to be pitched just to be able to continue to support more incoming materials.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, if it is actually profitable, would it be worth trying to explore, if a private enterprise would be willing to come forward if they had, some seed capital to get it up and running? Would that be a model that could be explored?
Yeah, that would be at the direction of the board. Certainly that's a more resource intensive, both financially and staff wise option. But yeah, at the direction of the board, that's something we could look into more.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. Further comment, Director Tarian? No?
No, I think that answered my question. I'm just noticing that that's the only one of the options that really provides any level of diversion. All the other options, the amount of diversion seems to be very low, and I don't know. I mean, anything is better than nothing, but if we're actually going to be serious about trying to divert stuff, then we should be looking at options that do that. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And we have two online comments from Director Sinnott. I too had a thought about the benefit of getting private business involved or not-for-profit who could fundraise, as we do see this with diabetes drops and habitat operators. And habitat operators like Habitat have more experience but limited drop-off times. Maybe just a Sunday service in urban areas to fill the gap. Screening goods may be the issue, but perhaps on a Sunday, a drop area not closed for material that could be sorted or binned. From Director Tayson, reiterating my question, are we considering moving diverted valuable materials around instead of putting surplus materials in the landfill? That is a question to staff, I believe. Go ahead, Vivian.
Thank you for the question. So currently, right now, we do not have the resources to be able to identify or outlets for those materials. So the strategies that are being presented within this report is speaking specifically to this, to be able to identify what those items with perceived value that have the ability for us working in partnership with nonprofits identified through an expression of interest, and then having that mechanism or avenue to be able to distribute it back within the community. But currently we do not have a way to, we don't currently do this right now.
Thank you. I'm happy to read online comments, but I'm also happy if people want to speak and let everybody hear their voice instead of mine. So, all right. Is there any, we have Director Grieve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It may come as a great shock to many people, but sometimes nobody really wants that old lamp. Thanks.
All right. Further comments or questions on receipt? Okay, thanks for that discussion and all who participated. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? The motion for receipt is carried, and we have a recommendation that the establishment of a reuse initiative at Comox Strathcona waste management facilities be deferred until completion of a more comprehensive approach. Moved by Grant, seconded by Grieve. Any discussion? Director Mawini? Oh, sorry, Director Davis first.
Just want a clarification of why it's necessary to defer any action on this based on setting up an educational program. It seems that, you know, we can kind of walk and chew gum at the same time.
I think if I can, the recommendation number 2 speaks to the ongoing efforts to undertake the education program. So the first recommendation here is about deferring any establishment of reuse initiatives, facilities, the various options there, 1A through 1E that are described there. Until the solid waste plan itself can be further presented, and like Sarah was saying, these memos be presented to the board. So you're seeing the various options, not just reuse initiatives, but the various options that'll come in front of the board in a more holistic fashion. And then secondly, recommendation number 2 speaks to that education program and initiative.
Thank you. And now Director Mulwini.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. And I guess what my question is really that I have an idea for a motion, which is I'm not sure if I need to bring it here because, you know, I think that the part of the original intention of the conversation and the reason that we asked for a report on free stores and recirculation initiatives was based on rural areas and their desires. And now we're talking about deferring it until 2026. And I would like to make a motion about that staff work with Quadra ICANN's Live Lightly team to consider the possibility of co-locating a volunteer-led free store on the recycle depot land. I'm not sure though if it's appropriate to bring that today following the recommendations here, or if it's better if I work with staff and bring that to a following meeting.
Well, we'll ask staff for comment on that. I think it's legitimately business arising from the discussion that's going on, but how it could be coordinated with the recommendation on the floor is something that perhaps staff could comment on.
I think it's as Chair Hillian notes, it's certainly tied into this particular topic and can be considered here today if that is of interest to the board. And alternatively, Director Mulwini, you're always welcome to connect with staff and put together correspondence on your letterhead for a subsequent meeting. And so I think it's really up to you. If you want to propose a motion here for consideration, that certainly is in order.
I guess the question that might arise is if this recommendation to defer would preclude the intent that Director Mulwini is proposing. So we may want to think about that, but in the meantime, Director Wells has the floor.
Thank you, presiding person, I guess. I'm not sure what to call you, but I'll call you Chair. It's easier. Thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, going back to the original intent, I think that's the challenge. And to the comment you just made, without actually amending this recommendation, I see that as challenging. And that timeline, 2026. May only feel like a couple of years away, but it's also going to be an election year as well. And just given the fact that we may have limited time to do things, yeah, just wanted to put that out there. The 2026 timeline does put it out quite a far away, and whether or not this precludes things in a way that would make Director Mulwini unable to bring something else forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Grant.
I'm just wondering if maybe deferring this motion to a subsequent meeting and allowing staff to speak with Director Mulwini in order to get this motion just the way we want it might not be the right way to go.
I think that's a good suggestion. I just asked our CAO the same thing, and that would certainly be a way to allow that conversation with staff. So Director Grant.
So my next question is it appropriate to defer this to the next meeting, or does staff need a little more time, or what should we do?
Vivian, do you want to weigh in on the timeliness of recommendation 1? I think it has some opportunity to be deferred because it's really about building that solid waste management plan review. I think by referring the matter to staff to connect in with Director Mawhinney and understand that aspect around Quadra might be appropriate.
Our next board meeting isn't until May 16th, so that will give us more than sufficient time to connect. It is a conversation that's been well underway for quite some time. So it is completely reasonable to bring that report back in May.
Okay, so if I were to, do we want to amend? Oh, okay, so we would do a deferral motion here till the next meeting.
I think a referral to staff to be
Okay.
able to connect in with Director Mawhinney to further that part of the conversation.
Okay, so I would make that motion.
Second.
So Director Grant has moved that recommendation 1 be referred to staff for further consultation. That's been seconded by Director Chapman. Is there any further discussion? I believe discussion is allowable on such a motion. And no one is asking, so we shall vote. Is there anyone opposed? That's carried. We are on to recommendation 2, that staff continue to inform and educate the public. Moved by Director Grieve and seconded by Director Grant. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, is there anyone opposed to that motion? And that is carried unanimously. And excuse me, we move on to item number 4. The appointment of replacement public RSWAC members for SWMP. The report dated February 29th for receipt. A motion, please. Moved by Grant. Seconded by Director Deck. Thank you for that. And is there any, I'll move it over to staff to fill us in on this.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I think Sarah's just got a brief presentation on this report. Sarah.
Thank you to the CEO, to the chair. So just a quick update on the membership of the Solid Waste Advisory, the RSWAC. So we had some vacancies due to folks leaving. There's 3 positions available. We pursued particular members to fill some gaps that were identified through the conversation with the board during our last process for recruitment, as well as through discussions with the RSWAC. So the 2 members that we're recommending here, Katie Lovely and Lori Bryan. Katie Lovely is a member of the Cumberland community. She is a nurse with Island Health and part of the Nurses for the Environment Comox Valley group, which was worked to raise awareness around single-use items in our communities. She's an engaged resident and, of course, a member of the community of our host landfill. Lori Bryan is the executive director of the Waste Management Association of BC. That's a group of predominantly haulers. Both are major haulers within the province of British Columbia, of which we have all represented here within the CSWM, as well as small haulers. And she has a background as a small hauler herself. So she's also a member of the advisory committee for the Metro Vancouver Solid Waste Management Plan, and has consulted extensively with the ministry on issues in particular. So we feel that she's a great neutral voice that can come rather than having an individual hauling company. She can represent broadly their interests, and she's willing to come over when needed or participate virtually. What we'll continue to pursue is a vacancy in the student position. So we had a youth advocacy position that students moved on. So we do want to fill that with potentially a grade 11 student, just so that we can have some longevity. So put out your feelers. If you have a passionate youth who's engaged in this issue or environmental issues in general, or has an interest in local government and the processes there, we certainly would accept recommendations. And we'll be working with our school educator to identify subsequent youth to participate. I'll put that on the floor and able to respond to any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Any questions or comments from directors? There appeared to be none. We do have Director Turian.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to put out a personal recommendation for Katie Lovely. I've known her for 10 years. She's thoughtful, well-spoken, reliable, just generally a very nice person. So I think she'd be an asset to the committee.
Thanks for that endorsement, Director Therrien, and I'm sure that all of us are appreciative of any citizen who steps up to take part in these processes. Further comment or question? Seeing none, all those in favor of receipt? Anyone opposed? Sorry, I should have just asked opposed. It's easier to see when we're doing online. That is carried unanimously, and we have a recommendation to appoint Katie Lovely and Lori Bryan to the Regional Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Moved by McCollum, seconded by Therrien. And any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? That is carried, and thanks very much to staff for the work involved in that. Item number 5, the resolution status report of March 2024. Motion for receipt, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by Mawhinney. Question from Director Wells.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just looking at the report, and I know it's been a couple of months, but I just wondered if there's an update on whether or not the meeting in person has been sent out or responded to from the province.
Our CAO can comment on that.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think you're speaking about the first item there around the co-chairs requesting the meeting with the provincial government, and then also bring the topic up for the Chairs and CAO Forum, EBCM coordinated event. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, mainly the first part about the meeting with the province, but I mean, maybe an update on the second one as well. I'm not sure what the date of the Chairs and CAO Forum is, but yeah.
So yeah, the Chairs and CAO Forum is the last week of March. It's Monday, Tuesday, and the topic is certainly I'll be bringing it forward, as well as we'll have some information for both Chair Baker and Chair Cole-Hamilton to raise. And as the note says there, we are proposing a UBCM resolution to come through the May 16th solid waste board meeting to address that first part of the resolution, the meeting request.
Oh, okay. So that's the meeting request will actually be going as a request for like the speed dating meetings at UBCM this fall?
Yeah, and I think also there may be a UBCM resolution along with that planned in the form of a staff report to come to May.
Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Warren. Any further questions or comments? Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's regarding item 5 here, regarding staff being directed to develop a greenhouse gas reduction strategy. I just want to flag this, and I know I brought this up before. If we move to a transfer station to bring TASIS waste to Cumberland, it is a 4-hour drive that will increase greenhouse gas emissions, I believe, and I would just like to get an assurance that that'll be incorporated into this when considering reduction in greenhouse gas emissions.
Mr. Warren?
Yes, I see Vivian nodding her head, and yes, that will be incorporated.
And Director Mawhinney.
Oh, thank you, Chair. My question was also around the first, what's it called, a resolution there regarding the meeting with the provincial government. I noticed that part 2 of that motion was that the co-chairs submit this topic to the regional district chairs and CAOs forum. And I noticed that that forum is taking place at the end of March, and I was curious if there had been any follow-up on that.
So I've been chatting with the organizer of the forum, and they do have an agenda that they put together. There's an opportunity, they call it a nuts and bolts session. There's an opportunity to bring forward topics of interest from whichever regional districts have them. So we'll be using that opportunity to bring that topic forward.
All right, thanks for that. I don't see any further questions or comment. Oh, Director Chapman. If you can, there we go.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. We live pretty close to Victoria, and I was wondering, instead of setting up these things for these speed meetings, that we shouldn't maybe pay a visit down to Victoria to the minister and deputy minister and ADMs and all the people they want to have there, and have an hour discussion as to what we need, what we want. Then at UBCM, we use that meeting so the minister can follow up with us on what has been done, instead of using these 15-minute speed datings as something that's going to be meaningful in getting some further clarification. I think we're better off going down to Victoria, spend that little bit of money on mileage and a lunch, go down. You can, knock on the desk and make our point. Thank you.
You've solicited some nods, and I see Mr. Warren furiously making notes. Is that something that staff would take under advisement, or would you prefer a new resolution in that regard?
I think we do have the resolution previously in the report that is being planned for that May 16th meeting. Of course, requests with ministers and with provincial government staff in Victoria is an option, and it is something that we have considered for different topics over the years. And so if the board wants to make that resolution more specifically and request that meeting through a Victoria-based meeting, that's fine. We can take that direction. It may or may not be successful. We can ask for a meeting. Doesn't necessarily mean that we'll get one. And I think the province often does look to UBCM for responding to meetings, but we can certainly make the request.
I'll just remind directors that we're on receipt right now. If anybody does have a motion, they need to wait till receipt is dealt with. Mayor Wells, or Director Wells.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I believe I was part of sort of crafting this part of it, and I certainly would say my intention with this was that it would be a meeting outside of the UBCM ones, just again, given their limited timelines that they have. So I appreciate the comments that were made. The only reason why I didn't speak against it is because it sounded like this was coming back in May, and that would be happening after the chairs and co-chairs, or chairs and CAO forum. And I almost, like, from my perspective, I guess just getting clarity, like that meeting's going to happen. Potentially something will happen out of that meeting, but will we have an opportunity at the May 16th to discuss that? Or because it sounds like the UBCM resolution, is it going to be a resolution to meet, or is it going to be a resolution plus a request to meet at UBCM? Just that clarification.
Mr. Warren will dissect those various questions.
Certainly, we can include the outcome of the chair's CIO forum in the May staff report. Wasn't too clear on your second part of the question around would the staff report include just a UBCM resolution or a UBCM resolution plus a request for a minister meeting? Is that what you were?
Yeah, just getting clarification, like because I mean, we're not really, those requests for UBCM meetings usually don't happen. I don't think, I thought that was usually around May, June, July, somewhere in there, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah, they are in around that time. I think the request to the local governments to request meetings comes out in around June. So the staff report, I believe, would cover both off the resolution process plus also that meeting.
All right, I think we'll move on and deal with receipts and see if there are any subsequent motions forthcoming. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that is carried. And we have, I don't see anybody asking to do anything about that. So we should, excuse me, Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the board authorize the chair and vice chair and the CAO to arrange a meeting with the relevant ministers in Victoria to discuss this issue and get funding to help us with the new regulations that are being imposed.
Second.
Moved by Director Chapman, seconded by Director Wells. Does staff have the gist of the motion? Is there any discussion? Director Mawhinney.
Thank you. I am happy to see this motion because I actually thought that that was the intent of the original motion. So I'm happy that we are underlining that we would like a meeting prior to UBCM speed dating.
It's always an added benefit when we can make directors happy. So does anybody need the motion presented in written form for you all to see, or does everyone understand the intent? Okay, we've had a request to see it, and staff are doing their best to present that for everyone's viewing pleasure. So the motion, the board, I think it's the, yes, that might be helpful at some of our solid waste facilities. The board, the motion is that the board authorize the chair, the vice chair, and the CAO to seek a meeting with relative ministers to assist with funding challenges. Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if instead of referring to the CAO, just put it as staff. And then the CAO can decide who else should attend the meeting.
Fair enough. And is it specific enough otherwise in terms of your intent? And the seconder agrees. Thanks, Director Wells. Okay. People happy and hands working is good things. So is there any further discussion on this motion? Director Grieve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is the point where the more experienced directors say, we tried that, didn't work. But just to let you know, if it's the Ministry of Environment, every time we had meetings with them, going back to our first solid waste management plan, the first thing out of the ministers or the ADM's mouths was that we are not a funding ministry, you know. So when you go asking for funding, they usually preface it with that. So just not to get everybody's hopes up too much here.
Thanks for that. I note the motion talks about relevant ministers, and I also note Director Wells' comment that we are in an election year, so maybe that will make some difference. Nonetheless, one more comment, and then we'll move to vote on this. Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question is the motion says assist with funding challenges. However, the original motion from January says funding challenges when new regulations are imposed. And I'm wondering if it's relevant to add that to this motion as well, or if that's understood to be included.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment. I see a nod from the mover and a thumbs up from the seconder.
Thank you.
Thanks for that contribution. I believe we've discussed this enough. Subject to a major protest, I will call for, is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. And I believe the only item we have left is adjournment. Moved by Grant, seconded by.
Second.
Some sounded like Director Wells. I believe all will be in favor. Thanks very much for your indulgence, board members. Thanks so much to staff for all the work involved in today's presentations. We stand adjourned.